Welcome back to HubSpot Excellence. In today's video, I want to explain how you can automate the enrollment for your sales sequences, a feature that will save you a lot of time and it will make sure that you reach the right people at the right time. I'm going to split this up in two different parts. The first part is going to be for anyone using Sales Professional. The other part is going to be for anyone using Sales Enterprise, since that will have some more advanced features. Unfortunately, anyone that is using a starter version of HubSpot will not be able to use sequences. So if you want to use sequences, you will need to upgrade to either a Sales Professional or Sales Enterprise license. And for the examples in today's video, I'm going to use a real estate example as well as a B2B consulting example, something that I would typically use myself. I'm Jasper, a certified HubSpot consultant, and without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so when we're in HubSpot, first of all, you will see that I already have the new navigation here. Depending on when you watch this video, you will have this navigation by default, but if you watch this video right as it is released, chances are that you are not using the newest navigation yet. So you will see that things are organized a little bit differently than they were in the beginning of 2025 or before. But right now we can find sequences under sales and then sequences here. And then the first part that I'm going to show you is how you can use sales sequences within Sales Hub Professional. So let's just first create a quick sequence. We're going to start from scratch, create a sequence, and let's call this one real estate. Then in here, we would typically have some automated emails. So let's say, let's just use like these here as an example. Like they're not really that relevant for real estate in general, but I do have a separate video on how to set up your sales sequences. Link that right up here if that's something that you still need to do. But I really want to focus this video on how you set up the automation for these sequences. So I'm just going to add one more email here. We'll just have these 3 days apart. Doesn't really matter for this demo. And then as soon as we have the sequence, let's just first save it, make sure that we have it. When we have the sequence ready, there are two options that we have within Sales Hub Professional to automate the triggering of this sequence. So when you go to the Automate tab within your sequences and then create an automation, you will see that you have two options here, Form Submission and page view. Now, specifically for the real estate example, let's say we want to follow up with someone after they have submitted an inquiry form. We use form submission here, and then you have the option to choose any form submission on your website or form submissions from a specific form. So let's just go for more information for now. We'll pretend that that's our inquiry form, and then we click on next, set workflow action. We want to enroll a contact in the sequence whenever this trigger happens. We'll do that. And then you can see that we can add a delay before enrolling anyone. So depending on which type of enrollment you're using here, you might want to make it feel a little bit more natural. So you might want to add a delay when somebody gets enrolled into the sequence. Now, let's say you add a delay here for 97 minutes. Then for the sender type, you can choose either a specific sender. So I can choose my name here, and then the address from which it will be sent. Or you can also just choose the contact owner, and that makes it a little bit more personalized. So whenever someone already has a contact owner within HubSpot, they will receive the emails within the sequence from that specific contact owner. So let's do it this way, and we'll create this, and then we can turn this on. So this workflow will now be active, and you can see that right here. And you also have the option to either edit this or also deactivate it at any time. So that's the first example here. Now for the second example, let me quickly set up a different sequence here. We'll do a B2B consulting follow-up. So we have this all set. We'll save this. And now we go to our Automate tab. Now we're going to use the second one. So the second trigger that we can use here within a Sales Hub Professional is the page view. So when we click on page view, you can see that we have two options here. So either a contact is viewed at least one URL equal to, or we can say a contact is viewed at least one URL containing. I usually do containing because it's a little bit more forgiving for any mistakes you might make, because this one needs to be exact, of course. So let's say we do contact is viewed at least one URL containing / pricing. That's one option you can do. Another one could be /services. Basically what we're trying to do here is when a contact has viewed a high intention page, which the pricing page usually is in a B2B environment, then we want to trigger the sequence. So let's do this. Then again, we will say enroll contact in this sequence. We're going to use a delay of 97 minutes again. We'll actually make it a little bit shorter here. We'll pretend that we're really fast at answering. We want to use the contact owner because we want the experience to be as personalized as possible. And then we'll create this and know this sequence will be triggered whenever a contact views a page containing pricing. So these are two options that we have to trigger sequences within Sales Hub Professional. Now, next, let's have a look at what we can do for a Sales Hub Enterprise. Because Sales Hub Enterprise will allow us to use the enroll and sequence action within workflows, so we can do more advanced things. So when we're in workflows, let's create a new workflow here from scratch. It will be a contact-based workflow. So we'll create that. And then here we can first choose a workflow trigger. So first of all, we're going to choose the enrollment criteria. So we'll click here, then we'll say when an event occurs, and we'll again go to page visited, and as criteria, we'll say the URL path contains any of, and let's stick to our real estate example for this part. Let's say contains Soho. So if your website is structured in such a way that all of the Soho properties are grouped together and that part of the URL stays the same, then you can use something like this to make sure that if it's like Soho property / property 1 / property 2 / property 3, usually they will have like more descriptive names, but that's one thing we can do here. Now, another option, if you do not have that structure on the website, but the name Soho would still be named in any of the properties that is listed in Soho, we could also just say Soho here. So then any property that contains Soho in the URL will trigger this workflow. So we'll do it like this, and we'll say when any page view contains Soho, and then we'll also check when they have last been contacted by us, just to make sure that we are not contacting them too often, especially since we're like gonna automate this. So we'll say last contacted is more than 7 days ago. So now anytime somebody visits the contains Soho, so they view a page on the website containing Soho and they have not been contacted in the last 7 days, then this will trigger. We'll also turn off re-enrollment in this case, which is turned off by default to make sure that they don't get the sequence over and over again. So next we want to check that the person who visited this page already has a contact owner assigned. And if that's not the case, we're going to assign one at this time. So for this, we're going to use the rotate record to owner. Then here you can see if we do not check this box, if there's already an existing owner, it will basically just skip this step. So we'll say contact owner, I'll set it to myself, and then we'll save this. So this means that if there's no owner assigned, the contact will first get assigned to me. And then next, we're going to check if this contact has already been enrolled in a sequence. So for that, we'll do a branch, then we'll say and/or, and then we're going to check and make sure that that's false. And then for the non-met branch, we'll say is currently in a sequence. So now we have this branch here. We will check if the contact is currently in a sequence or not. If they're not currently in a sequence, then we can enroll them in our sequence. So we'll say enroll in sequence. The sequence that we want to use here is the real estate inquiry follow-up, and the sender will be the contact owner. So we can save that. Now, if they are currently in a sequence, we can enroll them in another sequence. So instead, we still want to make sure that the contact owner knows about this contact having viewed the Soho page. So instead, we'll create a task and we'll say first name. Let's do it like this. So follow up with first name, last name, who is viewing Soho properties, the website. So we'll add that in here. We'll make sure that we assign this to the contact owner, and then we're all set. So here you can see that we can do more advanced things like making sure that a contact owner is assigned already, also making sure that we haven't contacted this person in the last 7 days, then checking if they're already enrolled in a sequence, yes or no, and then handling this accordingly. So that is a little bit more advanced, and these are features that we can use within a Sales Hub enterprise. Now, we always want to name our workflow. So in this case, I'll name it as an external workflow, real estate inquiry follow-up. So this one is all set. I'm not going to launch this right now, but you would click review and publish and then go through the steps to launch this sequence. Now, the next one that I want to show is one example that's more for B2B consulting, for example. I will go again to create a workflow from scratch. We'll do a contact-based workflow. And then this time we want to trigger a workflow based on a demo request. So whenever an event occurs, we want to go for a form submission here, and the form, so we don't really have a demo request form here, but I'll just use the more information for the sake of this demo. So whenever the form is more information, which would be our demo request form for the case of the demo, I want to go through this workflow. Now for something like this, it is important to use the re-enrollment, since people usually do expect an answer or reply whenever they fill out a form for a demo request. So we'll save this. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to check the contact owner. That's usually the first thing we want to do here. So I'll just quickly go here. We'll go to rotate record to owner, and we'll do the same thing as we did in the previous step. So whenever there's no contact owner assigned, we're going to do that at this point. Now we're going to add a branch here where we're going to check the company size. Now, here we're going to use edit available data because we need the company data here. And then we're going to add a record, which will be our company records. Oh. And then here we're going to choose company, and associated to the contacts, we'll do the primary company add. Then for the company here, we're going to check the revenue. So we'll check annual revenue, and based on the value of this property, we want to send people to a different sequence. So let's say the annual revenue is less than 1 million. That will be one branch. Then next we want to say if it's less than 5 million, we're going to go to that branch. And then the last one is going to be when it's greater than 5 million, that's going to be our last branch. We'll save this. And then these branches will be checked in order. So whenever it's less than 1 million, and this is also where I'm going to do a quick change here. So we're going to remove the contact owner action here, and we're going to add it here so that based on the size of the company and annual revenue, we're going to assign this to the right person. So we're going to rotate it here to, let's say we have like a specific user. It's going to be myself here for every example. We're going to rotate to a specific user for the less than 1 million. We're going to do the same thing for the less than 5 million. And then the same for non-met. But as we build it out here, this one should basically never be used in this case. So this means that we now can enroll these contacts in a different sequence based on the size of their company. And HubSpot is usually also pretty good of filling out this data using their data sources in the backend, and also by using their Breeze intelligence to then fill out that data within HubSpot without you needing to do any research for that, which is really helpful. And then now what we will do is for each of these, we'll go enroll them in the sequence that is relevant for them. So in this case, I'll just do the B2B consulting follow-up, but just pretend that each of these are a separate version. So this would be the follow-up for the smaller companies. And then we would do a different sequence here for the companies with annual revenue under 5 million. So basically between 1 and 5 million in this case. We'll just do a different sequence here. And then for the ones more than 5 million. And then for the non-met, we can do like some kind of like catch-all sequence here. Or if we'd like, we can also add a manual step and just create a task in this case to follow up with this contact. For the sake of time, I'm not going to like use any of the properties here in this name, but you would do like follow up with and then first name, last name, for example, add and then the company name. We can add that in there as well. And then our workflow to enroll contacts who submit or request a demo form is ready. And we can assign the right sequence and the right team based on the size of the company in annual revenue, which is really helpful. Now, a couple of things that I want to mention here. First of all, I would recommend to always test your sequences manually for creating these like larger automatic sequence enrollments. Just make sure that your sequences are performing well before you put them on autopilot. And that also brings me to the second point, which is when you run your sequences and you had 10, 20, 30, maybe 50 people enrolled in a sequence, go and look at your sequence data to make sure that the sequences are performing well. So if you go to sequences, you can go to analyze, and then you will see any sequence performance right here. And you can do the same thing by just going to the sequence itself. So if you open the sequence here in the performance tab, you will be able to see how many of these emails have been sent, and then the percentage of meetings that has been booked and replies that you have received, which of course is the main goal of your sequence. And these are things that you want to optimize. You want to keep an eye on these as well on a regular basis to make sure that your sequences are always at their top performance. And of course, if you have the best performing sequences thanks to this video, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more HubSpot excellence. Also, if you like this video, I'm sure you would like this video right here on how to set up your sequences, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.